to other fellow Toastmasters clubs. So that was an opportunity to first communicate with you by email, and then we ran into each other at the conference. You were taking loads and loads of super great photos, and that's where we met. And then it just sort of, I guess you could say, it just snowballed from there, and it was really great. The interesting thing about that relationship is my wife always went to conferences with me. So you knew Donna, you met her, and you saw her in the subsequent conferences that we attended together, and even some of the district and division activities that took place from time to time. And you also have run for district office before, and I've worked on your behalf as a campaign supporter in helping you with your Facebook page and a few things like that. And it's been quite the journey. And throughout the process, the thing I found most gratifying about it is you were always willing to be transparent and ask me questions and just say, from your perspective, what do you think you would do if I was in your shoes? And I appreciated that because it gave me an opportunity to share information just based upon my personal appreciation for you and for the situation and circumstances that you have been going through. So over the course of these years now, which I've lost count of, we have always been very, very in connection with each other, mostly by phone calls, by Facebook, occasional emails, and it's been great. Fred, you're part of my Toastmasters family, and I have a lot of this family, not just here in Florida, but all over the country and even some places in other parts of the world. And so here I am. It's June 2020. You were correct to say it's a milestone month, and perhaps maybe the single most life-altering month of my life. And it began last year in June of 2019. So I've been now for just over a year having to change my dynamics and how I approach living, and I've had to also do that entirely by myself. So that's letting folks know that my wife is no longer with us, because it was June the 2nd of last year that she died instantly and very suddenly here in the home, and I was here with her when it happened. She had cardiac arrest. They tried to bring her back, and they worked on her for close to an hour, but her heart had other ideas. And so my friend and companion and soulmate of almost 46 years died on June 2nd last year. And thus begins that journey through grief and to finding my way to a level of functionality, knowing that the grief will always be there, knowing that the sadness will always be there, but also knowing I'm still here and I have a purpose and a role to play. And I have things that I can do and I can make a difference. And so that's really what I strive to do every day, is to be a person that makes a difference in the lives of people and leaves, if you pardon the expression, a good taste in their mouths.
Hey, John, you muted yourself.
I didn't touch anything.
Hey, there you go. Okay, so tell us about the picture that I have on the screen here.
Thanks for sharing that. If you're looking at the screen, the one on the left is my wedding day, August the 18th, 1973, in Lakeland, Florida. Because here's the interesting thing. The people that know me know that I'm originally from Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the greater Tennessee area, and also have family not just in southeast Tennessee, but in northeast Alabama and northwest Georgia. So that whole tri-state area was where I spent pretty much, with the exception of my college years, the first 23 years of my life. I met Donna in college. Her name was Donna Marie Cole, and she lived here in Lakeland, Florida. This was where she was born and raised. So she's a true Florida native, born and bred. I visited Florida, obviously, during the obligatory breaks, spring break in particular. I really loved Lakeland. I fell in love with Lakeland. I think one of the things that may have had an effect upon me with Lakeland was we had spring break that year I met Donna, that school year that I met Donna, that academic year, in March. And the orange trees were in blossom. And back then, there were still buku orange groves everywhere. So I was awakened to a smell that I'd never smelled in all of my life growing up, and that was the smell of orange blossoms. And it still is one of the most memorable and unforgettable fragrances I've ever had. So I met Donna, fell in love, asked her to marry me. It was a whirlwind situation. We met in September 1972, married August 1973. With the exception of a year and a half when I was working a job in North Carolina, we have been in Lakeland, Florida, starting with the latter part of February of 1975, been in this city ever since. And this house that I'm in, I have lived in now 40 years. And we brought our son home from the hospital to this house after he was born. And he's the only one we have, which brings me to the subject of the beautiful little angel that you see on the right side. That is my first ever grandchild, and it is a granddaughter. I had a son. That's all we had was our son, Donald. Donald, this August 18th, will actually be 40. He was born on our wedding anniversary. This little girl right here is an incredible healing force and joy giver, and I just love to spend my time with her. She'll be 5 months old on the 27th of this month. And spend my time with her. She'll be 5.
And how long have you been a Toastmaster, John?
I've been a Toastmaster total number of accumulated years, 32. But I need to add a caveat. There is in that 32 a 3.5-year period where I was away, where I wasn't able to be in a Toastmasters club. I actually first joined Toastmasters in March of 1985. Plant City Toastmasters Club had just chartered. And so that's where I got my first 3.5 years experience. Then a job change occurred. I spent 3.5 years in that job. And then one day a person working in that job approached me and said, have you ever been a Toastmaster? And I said, oh yeah, I was. I was a member of Plant City for 3.5 years. So the individual says, well, I'm a member of a club here in Lakeland. And I said, where do they meet? And he told me the location. And I said, that's only like a half mile from where I live. And so he invited me to the meeting. I went to the meeting. The rest is history. I signed back up, became a Toastmaster again. That occurred in 1993. And the Lakeland Toastmasters Club has been my principal home club since 1993. I've been a member of other clubs, but at no time since 1993 have I not been actively a part of the Lakeland Toastmasters family. And that is my principal home club. And then there are 3 other clubs that I serve in as well in various capacities. And I love being around Toasties, so it's a lot of fun.
Okay, and while we're on the subject of Toastmasters, what are some other things you do besides going to clubs and attending? Maybe educate the public on maybe what Toastmasters is about and what you do currently in Toastmasters.
Well, I joined Toastmasters originally because I was struggling in my work. I was a advertising sales representative for an ad firm based in Lakeland, but serving this greater West Central Florida area. And I was really perplexed because what I didn't tell you is that the first 13 years of my life here in Florida was spent being a disc jockey. Now, the reason why I say disc jockey is because back in 1973 and all the way up actually until 1985, when I finally left the industry, it was literally being a disc jockey. We had LPs and 45s. We set them on turntables. We queued them up. We fired them off. We opened the mic. We announced intros, outros, did commercials, ran commercials that were recorded. The technology was not nearly so advanced. Back then, it was just basically the standard radio frequency, work. And I was working either on an AM station or an FM station because those were the states of the art. So the business that I did, I thought having a good speaking voice and having trained as a disc jockey and worked on my articulation, I thought that I would be successful in sales, and I wasn't. And I saw a Toastmasters demonstration meeting in Plant City at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast. I decided to visit the club. It was meeting in Plant City. It was brand new. Everyone in the club, with the exception of the mentor and the sponsor, were all people like me, had never been in Toastmasters before until they were introduced to the idea of a Toastmasters club, and they were able to charter that club. And by the way, the Plant City Toastmasters Club is a very vibrant and lively and fun group of people, and they are part of this particular area that I live in. So they're one of my sister clubs. I'm not a member of the club anymore, but trust me when I tell you, those are friends that I enjoy having fellowship with. Toastmasters taught me something about what I was really missing. It's not about your voice, although it's good to have a good voice. The greater thing you need to have is to understand how hard it is and how important it is to prepare, to thoroughly prepare, to know your material so much so that in a set time limit, and those time limits usually are 4 to 6 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes, you're able to make a definite opening, a solid body with 3 viable points, and then have a good conclusion that hopefully will call for an action from the audience. And through the experience of practicing in a nurturing and very warm and friendly and inviting environment where people were actually interested in my success and weren't looking for things to point out that I did wrong, they were looking for ways to help me improve what I already was doing and to learn what I could do to be even better. And that's been the mantra of Toastmasters. Today, I continue in Toastmasters because I love to pay it forward, and I love to coach and teach and mentor people. This is fun, but this guidance and fun also gives me opportunities to coach, and it gives me opportunities to serve on the district level periodically with helping clubs with our ever expanding growth program, which includes a brand new fully digital educational program. For every year that I ever was a Toastmaster, we had manuals. These were these books, and they had projects in them, and we wrote a lot and we took notes. Today, those are being dismissed. They're no longer going to be, and instead we have a digital site at Toastmasters International called Basecamp. I have a Basecamp site in 4 clubs because I'm a member of 4 clubs. I coach one, and I'm a member, active in Lakeland, obviously. Also a charter member of an advanced club comprised of experienced Toastmasters and a member of a Saturday-only club. So these are the 4 clubs that I'm involved in, but since we're doing a lot of Zoom right now and a lot of FaceTime and a lot of other web-based communications programs, I'm visiting other clubs. I was on the other night, believe it or not, with a club in Anchorage, Alaska. The only problem was they meet at 6 o'clock their time. That's 10 o'clock mine. So I had a late night, but it was a great group of people. And then there have been clubs that I've met with in Canada. I have worked and coached a lady in Paris, France, who speaks fluent English as well as French, and helped her because she was the president of her club in France. So I'm just constantly keeping busy. I still have excellent health. I won't deny you said I had a birthday this month, so I'll just tell everybody I turned 70 this past Tuesday, June 9th. I am now a septuagenarian.
And you look good for 70. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, John. If you were to pick one thing about Toastmasters that you absolutely love, what would it be and why?
truthfully, it's the fellowship, the friends, the extended family, people like you. I think I saw the heart of my Toastmasters family here in Central Florida when Donna passed away, because she died on June 2nd. My birthday was June 9th, and what was doubly tragic is that my son and his wife celebrated their first anniversary on June 9th as well. They were married on my birthday. On June the 10th, which was a Monday last year, we had a celebration of life service. It was a memorial, but it was also to praise a life well lived from an incredibly beautiful woman who, if you ever ask anybody that's known Donna, she was what made me look good. And she was always my stabilizing force. And at that celebration of life, over 300 people came. Clearly, a good 25% of the crowd were Toastmasters, not just from the local area, but Toastmasters from, well, Fred, you were there. You had come all the way from Ormond Beach, and there were Toastmasters that had traveled down from Gainesville and Ocala, and others as well, plus all the Toastmasters that I knew locally and from across the district, from Orlando and Kissimmee, Plant City. That right there is why I continue to be a Toastmaster. It's not the only reason, but if I wasn't doing anything else but just having fellowship with people who are trying to achieve the goal of developing their communications and leadership skills, and to get that self-confidence that fosters growth in personal and professional excellence, and I could have a hand in that while at the same time being with like-minded people who want to make communication the best possible, not just for themselves, but for all the people they come in contact with, because Toastmasters can help anybody in any kind of a situation to begin to have a better approach to communications, and also a much better listening attitude as well. And I never cease to learn when I go to a Toastmasters meeting. I always tell people, and I would say this to your audience, personally, when I arrive at a meeting, I'm excited to be there. I'm looking forward to it. I want to be there because I'm with my friends, and also there's going to be fun. We're going to do some challenging things, and we're going to learn and grow. But the thing is when that meeting is adjourned and it's time for us to part our ways after we've said our goodbyes, I walk away from every meeting I ever attend better than I was when I arrived. Let me say that again. I walk away from every meeting better than I was when I arrived. And that still is the case to this day. I never stop learning. So the fellowship, the education, the ability to master things and to be the best me I can possibly be, that in and of itself is my reason for continuing my Toastmasters journey, and why I continue and have for 32 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest things that I love about Toastmasters. I remember when my mom died, a lot of Toastmasters who didn't even meet my mom were reaching out to me. You were probably one of the first ones, because it seems like we could relate. So, that was something I appreciated as well. Which brings me to my next question is, with everything that's going on, John, and with what's going on with what happens with you as well, what have you been doing to stay busy during this whole quarantine and pandemic and everything else that's going on?
I am fortunate because of two things. One, because of Toastmasters, and because if the
John?
pandemic did, can you hear me? I'm here. Okay. I'm fortunate because the pandemic
Yeah, I can hear
sort
you.
of forced clubs that really wanted to keep having active meetings to learn to use things like Zoom. And so we started having our meetings via Zoom, and I became a fan of Zoom. There is no perfect platform for doing something like this when you're talking about digital virtual communication, web-based communication. But the fact is, these tools were readily accessible. They've been accessible for a number of years, but the pandemic forced us to have to do something as an alternative because the place we meet closed, and it's still closed. And some of the other clubs that I was a part of were meeting at places which were closed. So as such, we started having Zoom meetings. Well, what spins out of that is that you get invitations to other clubs that are also doing meetings online. And you begin to participate with meetings, not just here locally, but like I said earlier, I was on the other night with a club in the greater metro Anchorage area of Alaska, enjoying quite the time with a great group of people. And what was interesting is they're no different than Toastmasters I've met from other areas and other walks of life. And that's the fun part about it, is that I'm getting in on the act with a lot of Toastmasters meetings. I'm getting an opportunity to do some training and coaching online, which I help people, particularly who are Toastmasters, because they're trying to understand the digital technology of our new educational program called Pathways. In addition to that, they're trying to get guidance on the website that the clubs can set up as their landing page for the purposes of scheduling, posing questions, updating profiles, finding the names of fellow members, reaching out and making contacts, and communication. So I've been doing a lot of that. Also, the technology has been used to help me in terms of transitioning from being a basically in the office physical worker to a remote worker for a law firm that I work for. This law firm hired me because of my insurance background and my understanding of automobile accidents. And my purpose was to get a set of fresh eyes on the paperwork through the eyes of what a claims adjuster would do. And they have a digitally based technology system that I now have access to, so I can work on it right here from my home. And I enjoy that immensely. I stay active in my church. The biggest thing that I do is I spend time with my granddaughter. If I can get over there and spend time babysitting for her, I do. Last week I was over there 4 days because my children were moving into a new house. And this Saturday I'll be over there for 5 hours because they've got to both work on Saturday. And I get to come over and sit with her and keep her company and talk to her. And she's just, as far as I'm concerned, that's the fastest 6 hours on planet Earth. So there's plenty to keep me busy. There's work around the house, obviously, to do. Been doing some remodeling and changing some things. I'm not making myself a recluse. I learned early on through Grief Share, which is the organization that I started participating in and was until recently the group had to shut down until they could restart in the facility we were meeting. But through Grief Share, I learned that I can't let grief define who I am. Instead, I realized that sorrow and sadness are going to be a part of my everyday existence. I miss my friend. I will always miss my friend. But at the same time, too, I'm still here. So I have the capability of doing things. So I need to have purpose. And I have found purpose through Toastmasters, through my granddaughter, through my church, and through other activities that I'm allowed to participate in. And I'm definitely not sitting still. I get as much done as I can. Most of it's taking place here, but things are starting to loosen up, as everybody knows. So I'm glad that there is a return to some collective fellowship as well. But yeah, I got to be doing something or I'll go nuts.
Okay. Well, John, it was nice talking to you. Anything you want to, any final words of wisdom or anything you want to wrap up to our Facebook audience out there?
I would, if it's okay with you, invite any of your listeners who want to reach out to me through Facebook. I am on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. As a matter of fact, you know my Facebook page because you and I talk to each other through Facebook a lot. But also, too, I want you to remember that if you have any questions
Right.
about Toastmasters, I can tell you a lot about what I've learned. In addition to that, if the issue is one more that deals with grieving, I'm a good listener because actually there is no one way that's right. Every one of us is different, and understanding grieving and being able to put it in the proper context so that you can be functionally successful on a day-by-day basis is very important. A lot of people literally come to a complete stop and they just seem to disappear off the radar when grieving takes place, particularly a significantly horrible death. And I say horrible because for me, nothing worse has ever happened in my life than losing my wife. So I just want to encourage people to know that there is, as the songwriter said, a morning after. And that's the way I live. Every day is a new opportunity. So I take what I have and I try to put the most I can into it today because tomorrow is not a guarantee. So ask yourself this question: what are you doing to make a difference in your life and the lives of other people now?
Yeah, I love those words of wisdom, John. And I'm going to wrap up because I think part of our beginning got cut off. But, you know, that's what I like about you. You've been a good friend to me, a good man. Outside of Toastmasters, you've helped cheer me up when I was feeling down with between Toastmasters and the morning of my mom and some other things that, you know, you've got that gift, John, you know, and that's why I made it the point to have this be my first interview with you, you know, and now we're letting you know that. So I'm gonna wrap up this interview. Love you like a brother, and I'll uh, see you soon, maybe at the conference
I am
or
going to
at
be
the Vegas day. Excuse me,
I'll be
can't call
looking
it a
for
conference.
you August 22nd.
At the Vegas day event.
All right, my friend. Thank you, Fred. It's been a pleasure.
All right, John. See ya.
Bye bye.